Hello and welcome to the G3 Plus podcast. Demand for online gambling and streaming is at an all-time high, and creating a new category of online casino gameplay which taps into both is Livespins. It's a platform that allows operators to watch a slot stream and get directly involved by betting behind the action in real time. Joining me on today's Pulse podcast is Chief Commercial Officer Michael Pedersen. Michael, thank you for coming on.
Hey, Will, nice to have me here, and thanks for having me as a guest.
No problem at all. So I'm starting out with a definition, as you always do. So culture is defined as the beliefs, customs, language, behaviors, rules, and rituals of a particular society or group of people. How would you define online streaming culture, and what are the shared similarities with online gambling?
You're starting out with the tough questions from the get-go.
The deep one.
Yeah, the deep ones. Yeah. That's a tricky one. I think if we look at the first sort of platform where slot streaming came out, it was obviously Twitch, right? But before slot streaming, it was really all about the big brother is esports effectively, and all the computer games being streamed. So I think by way of culture, it does just sort of form this sort of underground society to some extent, where people that are very interested in the computer games and now slots sort of come together. They like the same things. They think it's cool. I think in the esports side, you're very much looking for an edge. Like you're spending time watching these pro players playing League of Legends or Call of Duty or whatever it is, and you're watching to try and learn from the best in the business and try and get an edge in your own gameplay, right? Now, fast forward into slot streaming, there's obviously, let's say, maybe there's a level of perceived skill, but not so much skill as there is in Call of Duty. So I think it's much more an entertainment piece. I think there is still an element of how are they playing, understanding the games, what features do they play, how do they play, I think the players are trying to get some element of strategy from it, maybe, but I think it's much more entertainment driven and sort of a way of meeting up with like-minded people that like the same thing. So how to define it? I don't know. Yeah, at the core, there is like-minded people. So, they like the same thing. I think the second point is also, especially in casino, there's always been this taboo that casino players are not social. And we don't believe that's true. We think casino players are social if they can have their privacy intact. And I think this is what Twitch also offers, and Livespins the same thing here. Like you have your nickname, but that's at the end of the day, that's it. You don't your grandmother wouldn't know that you're watching the stream, so to speak, because you're sitting behind a nickname that she wouldn't recognize, so to speak. So I don't know if that answers your question somewhat, but it's yeah.
Would you say that streaming culture naturally lends itself to iGaming, with kind of Livespin serving as a natural bridge between the two? Or would you say that the platform you've created kind of artificial might be the wrong word, but artificially brings together two communities that share synergies, as we've discussed, but don't currently have a means to access one another?
I think let's use the numbers and let them speak here, right? So Twitch in 2021 on the slots category had 280 million hours watched on the slots category. Fast forward 1 year, that number was 400 million hours watched on Twitch. So first of all, just the numbers in their own are staggering in terms of amount of hours that are being consumed on slots. And secondly, the growth year on year is staggering as well. So I think, at least for us, Twitch was a fantastic use case to say, yes, there is most definitely a bridge, a parallel. There is interest from real money casino players in live streaming, 100%. So yeah, there's definitely a link there for sure.
Seeing as you've brought up Twitch, this was something I was thinking of bringing up later on, but I'll bring it forward a bit. So kind of after this is something you will have discussed, I'm sure, with others. After backlash from the streaming community, Twitch decided to ban unlicensed gambling sites that could expose the site to potential harm. Now, despite the media leaving many under the impression that gambling has been banned in its entirety, which it certainly has not, could you offer an explainer on the policy changes that were made?
Yeah, absolutely. And you're spot on. A lot of people think that they have banned gambling. That's not the case. And I think everyone was looking at Twitch, sort of with anticipation. What are they going to do? How are they going to approach this? And I think we expected them to introduce like a whitelisting system, a little bit like, Google would have done, or on YouTube. So you would need to, send in your licenses and sort of apply and say, here we are, we would like to stream. And then you sort of go on the whitelist, you become approved. But Twitch went down the other route and introduced a blacklist instead. So they now have, I believe, 5 URLs effectively, or brands that have been blacklisted, that is no longer allowed. So streamers cannot stream those URLs on Twitch. So I think that is a much lighter version of, let's call it, regulation than we had expected. So it's interesting to follow, but so far that's where it stands. To my knowledge, as of last week at least, it's still these 5 sites that are banned from streaming on Twitch, and then they have also sort of highlighted the fact that this also includes social casino and sweepstakes and stuff like that. So that's it. So there's no streamers per se that are banned, and that's the extent of the ban so far.
And what have been the kind of the knock-on effects of the policy changes on the public perception of streaming and gambling? And has it kind of impacted any conversations that maybe you were having at the time the policy changes were implemented with operators, just because they're like, whoa, we've seen all this stuff in the media about Twitch and streaming, and we don't want to touch you with a barge pole, and then you've had to explain to them that that's not quite what's happened?
Yeah, I mean, for Livespins, it's been fantastic, to be honest. So it's actually accelerated interest in Livespins.
Wow.
I think. So if we just take the ban sort of aside, so to speak, I think in general, at least in our view, but we're obviously heavily biased here, but I think Twitch and sort of the other streaming platforms there is an element of risk associated here, that at any moment, Twitch could expand on their banning, or the sort of their community guidelines, and make it completely not allowed. The local advertising or gambling license regulators in each jurisdiction could go in and ban it completely. So if you want a license in my jurisdiction, you're not allowed to work with Twitch or any of these platforms. And some of the reasons as to why they would do that is that a platform like Twitch is still not able to age gate, for example. They cannot, block out anyone who's below 18 yet. And so that's causing a lot of, let's say, that's introducing a lot of risk to operators that would like to work with streaming. And this is where Livespins offers an alternative, right? So the Livespins experience sits inside the operator's casino lobby. So it's still live streaming, but it sits in their own backyard, so to speak. They know that everyone that sees the stream has gone through their registration process, their KYC, they're 100% plus 18, and they can feel, they can offer live streaming and a product that appeals to people looking for that experience, but without the risk. So all in all, it's been really good for us, actually, and we're getting more and more interest, especially from the larger operators.
On the sports betting side, I had a conversation a few months ago with the CEO of Twain Sport. Now they have these kind of fast sports, kind of like 1v1 in basketball or football. And then I was asking about where he'd like his offer to be positioned within operator sites. And he was like, ideally, further down the line, we'd like to have kind of our own subcategory. Are you the same on the iGaming side? Is that something that you could see in a few years' time, potentially kind of you're having at the bottom sports betting, iGaming, and then Livespins?
We look at it differently, actually. Right now, Livespins is all about casino, but we very much envision and is currently experimenting with applying the Livespins concept to sports betting and esports, etc., etc. So, as opposed to betting behind a casino streamer, could you be in-play betting or live betting and betting behind an ex-footballer or an LFL expert or something like that, and you could sort of tap into their expertise, and they would know all the fixtures and the results from the last 20 games, and there would be a tremendous upside for the players to be betting behind these kind of experts. So this is our take on it. So that's what we're experimenting with. In the meantime, we do more like sort of the happy medium. So we would have casino streamers that would be massive football nerds as well, so to speak. So they know everything about everyone, and they, although they're spinning slots, they would be entertaining and talking about sports and the match of the day, etc., etc. So that's how we have chosen to approach it. I don't know if I answered your question correctly here.
No, you have. You've kind of picked several strands I want to pick up there. I also think that esports would be a perfect kind of in for Livespins in the short term. I mean, yes. The idea of these esports players have a massive following, and if you can just bet behind them playing Fortnite or NBA or whatever it is, I could really see that working. Is that a leap that you'd make before going into sports betting?
Yeah, look, I mean, for us, it's very important to start with the core and get the basics right. Let's not run before we can walk, kind of thing. So this year it's all about casino for sure. Yep. And then let's see where the future is going to take us in 24 and 25. We're open to all verticals. You can say the same. You play around with the concept of poker as well. Daniel Negreanu sitting at the table playing cards. Imagine you could bet behind him, so to speak, as well. So yeah, there's many opportunities, and that's what makes us excited about Livespins as well and the future roadmap.
And out of your current player base, who is predominantly using the Livespins platform? Is it kind of a broad church? Are they a mixture of existing online casino players and newbies that have been attracted from the streaming community?
Yeah, that's a great question. So there's two sides that I would like to answer here. So one is, I think when we launched Livespins, there was a lot of sort of initial impression that this is for the 18-year-olds, it's for the young kids, and these kind of things. But it's actually, and it's definitely casual. There's no sort of let's say frequent players using the product, but we're actually proving that it's quite a balanced bag actually. So we definitely have the casual for sure, but we definitely also have people who come back to the product again and again and again, and who are frequent players. Also across ages. So, I think our product is not only about the 18-year-olds. I mean, if you look at millennials, they are almost 40 years old now, 37 to 40 years old. So but they grew up with connected computer games. Like, they have not played against the computer like the good old days. Like, if you're 40 today, you would have been grown up with Xbox and PlayStation that was connected. You could meet friends or play against strangers online. And it's the same lane that Livespins is in. So in other words, we definitely attract sort of the mass audience and the more older demographics as well. So yeah, what was the question again, Will? We're back to the question. I lost track there.
Kind of the player demographics, and whether it's kind of mostly online casino players returning or newbies coming from the streaming community.
Yes, perfect. So that was a bit on age groups and sort of, it's not only for the 18-year-olds, but Livespins can also be used in two ways. So first and foremost, we are a game sitting in your lobby. So it's predominantly a player retention, player engagement tool that is proving to be very sticky, and players keep coming back to it. So that's great. But also we allow the operators to onboard their own brand ambassadors or their own streamers. So, and therefore, if they engage in that, they can use Livespins as an acquisition tool as well. So we can sit across both those strategies. And last but not least, the operators are also able to multicast, meaning the same stream would go into their lobby as well as to a Twitch or a D Live or a Kick or whatever sort of streaming platform they would like to use.
And of the players who have kind of been attracted on the operator sites, when they come to Livespins, when they return to Livespins having had their experience, are they also playing the solo experience as well and they're kind of dabbling in both? Or is it that they kind of come to Livespins and go, wow, this is a great platform, I only want to use this from now on? Or is it almost such a different experience that they want to experience both?
Yeah, I mean, it's a bit too early to have concrete statistics on that from our side, and also it would be the operator having that data and not necessarily shared with us all the time. But I would say, I mean, look, Livespins is not for everyone, right? There will definitely be, and I would even say the majority of casino players will still come in and want to sit at the normal roulette table or to play, the normal slot game or whatever it is. But there is definitely a chunk of players and a more significant and larger chunk for every month that passes that are looking for something more interactive and especially for one idea I always throw to operators. So a lot of operators use live streaming to acquire players. So the players come from a live streaming environment. And then they register an account, and then they're dropped into a casino lobby with static normal games where you play a solo session, and there is absolutely nothing sort of live about it, at least on the slot side. So I think that's one area where Livespins can also help operators, that when they acquire players from a live environment or a live interactive environment, there is much better match with a game that is also based on live, so of course it can be live casino, but in the slots lobby it can also be Livespins, so to speak. So that's where we sit as well.
Does Livespins want to develop a connection between its audience and the streamer, the content being played, or kind of the overarching bet behind concept and make them into long-term Livespins players? And that's something that's really interesting to me, is kind of where are you trying to forge that connection?
So that's a good question. Actually, do you mind repeating that, Will? If you don't mind.
Not at all.
Yeah.
So do you want to kind of forge a connection between audiences and the streamer themselves, between the audience and the content being played, or kind of getting them connected with the kind of the bet behind concept and becoming long-term players on the platform? Because streaming platforms are not so much about viewers interacting with one another, but the streamers' interaction with kind of the viewers and vice versa, because there's not really much discussion between players on chats because it's always clogged up. So I'm just interested in kind of where you want players to be looking. Do you want them to go, wow, that was a fantastic G3 game and I want to go back and play that game? Or do you want it to be, oh, I really loved betting behind, I want to do it again? Or is it that you want connections with the streamer and you want it to be, oh, I want to follow that person?
Yeah, honestly, I think the answer is like it's all of the above, basically. Yeah. I think that's what makes the Livespins experience so special, is that, and why people are returning to it is, A, you're playing slots and you're playing great content, and we're seeing a lot of players using Livespins as a discovery engine. So they, you know how casino players are stuck to the same 5 games, and if you check back in with them 10 years later, they'll probably still be playing the same 5 games, right?
They'll be playing Book of Ra and
yeah, exactly. Starburst and all these titles, right? So it's very difficult, even for the providers, but also for the operators, to get title number 6 and number 7 introduced into that portfolio. And I think that's where Livespins can help out, because without the player having to do much work, the streamers are automatically sort of almost unboxing or unpacking new slots, and they walk people through it. Say, here, we're aiming to get 4 elephants on the 4th reel, etc. That will unlock. So it's a bit of a shortcut for the players to learn and discover new content. But it's definitely also the link between the streamer and the player. Like, we see players having a preference to one of our streamers versus the other one, and whenever that streamer goes online, they will come back and they will actively look for this person. So there's definitely the human connection that you prefer one streamer to the other. And last but not least, we do our utmost to create engagement. So player to player, they also interact and chat, right? So it's hitting on all 3 things, and we think that is probably one of the reasons why we're seeing the product being so sticky, is that it's a combination. It's great content. You have a streamer entertaining and talking to you, and you're with like-minded people that loves the same stuff as you, exactly like what's happening on Twitch. It's just inside the casino lobby.
And on the streamer perspective, in terms of how they gather a following, the role of a streamer is to kind of interact and entertain viewers. They're under pressure to appeal to viewers through making gameplay interesting and entertaining viewers. Now, how do you ensure kind of your platform achieves this without being at risk of spreading any kind of a false reality? Because ultimately, the streamers are being paid to play the games, whereas those who are betting behind aren't. So how clear and transparent is this relationship on the platform? Is there some kind of disclaimer or anything of that ilk?
That's a great question. So I think half of the founding DNA of Livespins is because we saw clearly the player has an appetite and interest in live streaming, and Twitch was, a clear use case of that. But on Twitch, the whole ecosystem operates on an affiliate model. And exactly like you're saying, the streamers are kind of, incentivized to grow big followings almost at whatever it takes, because the bigger their following, the bigger their affiliate commissions will be, effectively, right? So there's a strong link to their own income. And unfortunately, that causes, many streamers to have, unsustainably large bet amounts, or the player sitting at home in the living room will think that this streamer is making a living off gambling, whereas in reality, in some cases, they're funded by either game studios or the operator, etc. So it's a false environment. And from the get-go with Livespins, we said that the Livespin has to be the good alternative here. So to answer your question, first of all, our streamers are not incentivized by how many people are betting behind. There's no financial upside for them. Their goal is literally to entertain and make it a great, fun experience for the players. 2, whenever players come into the product, we transparently put a disclaimer that this streamer is a Livespins employee, and they're there to host. They're not a player, effectively, right? Yep. So we also have a code of conduct in place. So there is a maximum bet amount. I think it's €10 or something like that. So inside Livespins, it's not really about the bet amount. It's about the multiplier that they generate for the players that are betting behind, and it's about the entertainment factor. So we leave all this unsustainable behavior behind, and therefore Livespins also becomes, like I said, less risk and more appealing to especially the larger operators that want streaming, but they're afraid to touch on Twitch and that sort of affiliate environment because they have a compliance manager, beating them at the back, basically. So we're trying to take the good parts, take the entertainment aspect out, but leave all the unsustainable stuff to others.
And having covered the streamer angle and of the safe gambling angle, the other aspect that I'm trying to get my head around is you've penned a number of kind of content integration deals with the likes of Gamzix, M88, Every Matrix, YOLO Group, and many more. How do these agreements work and differ from kind of the traditional? We see it all the time in the iGaming industry, don't we? The X studio integrates with operator Y. How do both parties serve to benefit from the agreements that you're striking, and are they much different to kind of the agreements that are being signed all the time between slot studios and operators?
Yeah, no. So technically, Livespins almost acts as a platform. So we work both with game providers that integrate directly into Livespins platform, and that effectively becomes the game selection that the streamers will have. So the game studios have to integrate directly into us, right? So that's the input side. And that's just standard API, exactly normal stuff, basically. And towards the operators, now Livespins becomes the game provider. And again, completely standard API integration. We're a game provider like anyone else, integrating into the operators' systems, basically. So yeah, it's exactly the same. We tried to make it as easy as possible for both providers and operators to work with us.
And rounding out with kind of a commercial look at kind of new products and new markets and long-term visions, could you kick off by telling me more about your recently launched Ambassador product? What is it? What opportunities does the product present? And kind of what are the promotional opportunities with content?
On the Ambassador product you mentioned?
Yes.
Yeah. So what we call the Ambassador stream is exactly what I mentioned earlier, where we allow the operator to onboard their own brand ambassadors or streamers into the product. So I'll give you an example. Let's say an operator would have I don't know, Snoop Dogg as a brand ambassador. Then instead of having a promotion saying, "Hey, come and watch Snoop Dogg on Friday from 9 till 10," they can, with Livespins, they can now make another promotion, which is, "Hey, come and sit at the table and bet together with Snoop," and you're literally right there sitting with him. You can chat, you can play. If he wins, you win, etc., etc. And it just changes the narrative completely in the eyes of the player, that it's no longer a passive experience. It's something I'm part of. You're connecting the brand ambassador to their fans in a much better way through Livespins as well. So that's the Ambassador product and how it works.
And last year you partnered with WinBet, and I believe that was your first deal in the US. Correct me if I'm wrong. What are your company's plans for kind of stateside expansion, and how is the Livespins platform performing in the US compared to Europe? I know we're at an early stage with regards to data, but are you noticing any early differences?
Yeah, I can't tell you yet, Will, because we're not live yet. So we have signed with WinBet. We're very thankful for that, and we are right now going through the licensing processes with New Jersey, Michigan, Pennsylvania, and Ontario. So we're betting big in North America, and we're doing that because we've received immense interest in Livespins and from the larger operators, and we decided to double down. So we're coming fast into North America, but slow, as it takes unfortunately quite a long time to achieve licenses and fill in application forms. But we're steadily making progress week after week.
And kind of in the short term, are your primary goals kind of prioritizing scale? Is it creating a vast audience? Is it product development? I mean, I know you're going to say all of them, but is there any one that's a particular priority?
All of them, Will. Honestly, it's so product wise, we are very much a product led company. So we push out, we deploy, almost several times a day, almost with new improvements, no matter how small they might be, but constantly working on improving the player experience. And the second bit, as you said, is exactly scale. So until we go into North America, we are very much sitting in sort of the .com world of the industry. It's very much signing agreements with the various distributors, aggregators, and operators that are operating in the .com space. So this is where we spend most of our time now, sort of scaling up and bringing more operators on board. We're also working with more providers, of course, and getting more content in. But now we're in a pretty good place. So we have about 30 studios integrated at this time. Most of the focus sits on the operator and the aggregator and reseller side of things.
And out of those studios, are they kind of a mixture of small up-and-coming studios and more established, or are they generally kind of more along they've been around for 10 years and they already have massive hits? Or, sorry, I'm just many questions here. And also, would you say that the games they're pushing, are they new titles, or are they the studio's kind of best performing titles?
Yeah, great question. So it's a mixture of both. So we have, industry titans like Relax Gaming and Yggdrasil integrated. We also have up and coming studios that have great content that we feel works really well in a Livespins product experience. So it's both, but I think also we very much try and bring on local studios that might have a niche market or a really good understanding of certain regions, and to try and bring them on board as well. So we're trying to achieve this sort of rounded portfolio, if you will. So there is something for everyone. To your second point, so whenever we integrate with a studio, we onboard the full portfolio of games. So we will have all their titles, both the big hitters and the second in line, and so on and so forth. So yeah, that's how we work.
And then it's completely down to you which games you decide to promote, or is there kind of constant collaboration over which ones are pushed out?
Yeah. So let's take an example. So if we onboard 100 titles from a game provider, we have a head of content sitting on our side that filters through the game titles. There are some game titles that does not work inside of Livespins. So, for example, a game that has a progression or what is called a memory or a state game would not work in Livespins, because the player can just sit and watch, wait for the streamer to build up the progression, and then start betting behind. So it's very easy to take advantage of. So those titles we would have to exclude, and so on and so forth. So let's say out of the 100, maybe we would onboard 90. But out of those 90, we do two things in Livespin. So first of all, again, if we go back to Twitch, we see a lot of studios effectively buying airtime with some of these big streamers. So they would be spending large sums of money to secure airtime. And we don't really believe in that long term either. So inside Livespins, no provider can buy airtime. It's up to the streamers, and it's also up to the players what title they want to play next. So they have a lot of fun with this. Like in the chat, they'll be like, "Hey, next time, why don't we play the whatever latest slot from Relax?" Oh yeah, that's fantastic. Let's do that. And then the streamer has the freedom to navigate according to what the player wants. And we think that is essential to have a great player experience where they voice their opinion, the streamer can react instantly and don't need to think about, we have agreed to certain terms or with certain providers. So we keep it completely neutral, and all providers have an equal chance to be promoted, basically, as well.
That kind of jumps on to the next question I was going to ask about. Do you make any guarantees at all with regards to each provider, as to say, we guarantee you'll have X number of hours of your games being streamed? You don't. It's literally a case of what the player wants.
Yeah, 100%. So we do not make any guarantees whatsoever. There are we do sell two products where the operator can get like a dedicated table in live casino. With us, you can get a dedicated stream. So we would effectively, they would tell us, I don't know, we're going into Brazil. We would like a dedicated stream in Portuguese. And then we would go out and hire, train, and operate that team of streamers on their behalf. So it becomes exclusively their product. And on that product, we hand over content control to the operator. So that means that they can, tick and untick effectively which game providers and which game titles they want the streamers to choose from. And they can also onboard their own game studios or exclusive content that they might have on that side. So that's the only place where, let's say, there is an influence on which providers are being played. But it's the operator making that call, not us.
And we touched earlier on kind of the idea of branching out into sports betting and esports, but first, as you say, learn to walk before you run and all the rest of it.
Yeah.
What's your kind of vision for Livespins long term? Is it to be the kind of business that goes to, say, ICE London 2030, and they have the biggest stand at the event, and they're kind of one on their own? Or is it that you're in a position where others are trying to copy you? Because that's ultimately where every company would like to be. Where do you see Livespins going in the long term?
Yeah, so apart from the buying the biggest stand at ICE, because I don't necessarily think that's ROI positive all the time, but anyway, I think that's definitely the direction we're going. So sort of jokingly internally, we call ourselves Evolution for a younger crowd.
I was thinking of Evolution when I asked that question.
Yeah, exactly. So no, we look, the base here is live streaming, right? And creating game experiences based on live streaming technology. And we only see upside here. Like, this is only becoming bigger and bigger. And we are constantly finding new ways of using this powerful technology to create a more entertaining experience. And honestly, we think we as iGaming need to be better at innovating in that direction, because the world around us is doing exactly that. Like, if you look at entertainment outside of iGaming, to a large extent, be it Apple or Disney Plus or Netflix or whatever it is starting to do this sort of digital connectedness a lot more, where you can share a movie together, you can comment while watching it in each other's living room and stuff like that. So there's a lot more to come here, and if iGaming doesn't step up and sort of follow this trend, we're definitely missing out on a trick here. And again, we're not saying that tomorrow 100% of casino players will want a live streaming experience. It's definitely not the case. The traditional experience will remain for many years and decades to come. But there is definitely a growing player segment here that is looking for something more than me and a spin button. And we think Livespins can be one of those alternatives.
Oh, it's an excellent way to end it. Thank you very much for coming on the podcast, Michael. Really enjoyed it. I'm sure we'll have you on again soon.
Pleasure, William. Anytime. Thank you so much for asking us to join.
Pleasure. Thank you.